Hey guys, it's Kate and I hope you're having a great day. I wanted to play around with some watercolor today and I almost didn't post this video, but I thought it might be nice to post anyway just because it was kind of a neat little experiment with sort of smushing your brush really to get some leaf texture. So if you want to hang out for a few minutes today and I will show you what I did on this piece of watercolor paper. So I got out my Mei Liang palette. Right now I'm working with ultramarine blue. I'll also pull in some Payne's gray and some greens, and I'm doing kind of a little landscape. So first I'm working on the sky and I'm trying to leave plenty of white space because I want to give the idea of white clouds in the sky. So I'm trying to be a little bit strategic with the blue, but I also will go ahead and dab some off with a tissue too to get a little bit more of that white back in. And so I've got this paper pad kind of propped up on another palette just so I have a little bit of gravity working for me and have the watercolor flowing a little bit down the page. And I'm going in with some green. I believe I got olive green and some yellow green from the palette, as well as Payne's gray to mix in at the bottom. And I'm just doing a nice warm green grass. And so then I'm going back into my Payne's gray and just kind of cooling it down and adding a bit of a fainter color for maybe some distant grasses or anything, just distant landscape that's kind of out of focus. And so I'm just going to blot a little bit more from my sky, and then I'm going in with the tissue now. Sometimes when I'm doing watercolor, and I try to post a lot of videos, but sometimes when I'm just kind of playing around with watercolor and I'm not really doing something that I think might be video worthy, but I'm just sort of trying out some fun things. And I try to record everything I can because I just never know how it'll turn out. And so I hope that you enjoy this one and maybe it gives you some ideas. But I have been practicing my skies to hopefully make them a little bit better. I've done some sunsets and now I'm kind of doing just a cloudy day in the daytime. And so I'm going back in with that Payne's gray and darkening up a bit. And one kind of nice effect is if you are working wet in wet on your paper like I am here, you can kind of see where I have that stripe of Payne's gray and it almost sort of wicks upward into the sky. And that's another great effect if you're doing landscapes or anything where you want to give the illusion that maybe there's some grasses or bushes or things in the distance. And you can really use water to your advantage and get that wicking action going on so it's not just a hard line. So that's one thing you can kind of see here. And I'm blotting up my red splashes because I don't really want that in the sky, but I didn't quite get them all. So I decided here, after drying my first layer of paint, I wanted to get my palette knife and try to put in just some sort of twiggy trees. And so I'm doing left-handed and realizing that's a poor decision because I'm right-handed and I'm just basically putting a blob down. So I put down my brush and switch hands, and now I can actually get my lines a little bit better. So I'm just kind of playing around with my palette knife here, and my brown color that I'm using is a little bit watery, so it's going to be a little faded. And what I'm hoping is as it dries, it kind of fades to the background a little bit to just give some sort of wispy trees in the landscape. And even at this point, I really was just playing, and sometimes that's where you can find some interesting effects. And I just wanted to play with my brush and just not really care. So that's what I did. And so I'm just kind of putting in these little twigs here and there and just sort of making some vague tree shapes. And then finally a third one. And then I decided to do some sort of brush matching. I don't know what the technique actually would be called, but basically I'm using it. I don't know, it's a little bit maybe different than scumbling, but really just tapping it pretty firmly onto the paper, and I'm using a watery green, so it's not, you know, super high contrast, and it just kind of fades with the rest of that background and kind of blends into that Payne's gray a little bit. But then I decided, well, I really want to have something for the foreground, and why not make another tree? so so I kind of finished doing my little brush marks on those trees, and you know, getting a little bit of that detail and definition, and then I go in with my brush to make sort of a little bit of a tree trunk or a bush, and I'm just sort of loosely putting in some branches. And what I'm doing is, you know, I want to have sort of my main branches where you can see them, but then I'm also going to be adding some broken ones with my brush. And so that would kind of give the illusion of, you know, when you look into a tree, you can see branches kind of pop out here and there, but when you look at a tree, you can't see all the branches all the time. You just kind of see them poking out here and there where you have gaps in your leaves. And so I wanted to create an effect like that by sort of painting in those gaps. And then I decided to do the leaves over that, so you can kind of see my little branches poking through, and one sort of main branch that goes all the way up. But other than that, I'm just kind of filling in the rest with leaves. And I really love this effect that I got with the brush. It's just very organic looking. You want to maybe kind of switch your wrist angle a little bit, because if you tap the same exact way every time, your little brush ends will kind of point the same direction. But it was kind of fun to just experiment with that. So I started off with the regular green, and then I added some Payne's gray for sort of some shadowy areas, and then went in with some yellow ochre to add a little bit of brightness and warmth to it. And then last but not least, I went back in and kind of thickened up that bottom trunk a little bit, so it looks like the tree can actually support itself and not just be basically a twig sticking in the air. So I hope you enjoyed this quick little video today and got some ideas for how to experiment with your watercolor brushes and strokes and landscapes and all that good stuff. So if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep creating. Bye.